Good evening. On the 22nd, 23rd, and the 24th of February, people from around the world are encouraged to gather in major cities to show support for Ukraine. I'm not telling anyone to go, but I am going to tell you why supporting Ukraine is important. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Russia invaded Ukraine because they saw that Ukraine was moving towards Western democracies and away from the Russian influence and the massive corruption Ukraine inherited from the Soviet Union. The full-scale invasion was actually the second time Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia first invaded Ukraine in 2014, an invasion that was ended, at least for the rest of the world, with an agreement that Russia is forever satisfied with the territories they have annexed and they will never have additional demands for Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine because in 2004, when Poland and the Baltic states joined NATO, Russia was too weak to intervene. And yes, we joined NATO because NATO is a defensive alliance and you have to apply to join. In fact, in the early 2000s, Russia wanted to join NATO. But since NATO didn't give Russia a golden ticket to NATO, Putin went home and started to form the narrative that NATO promised him to never expand eastwards. Actually, Russia has always shared a border with NATO. It's just that no one talks about it because Russia has never developed its eastern parts. But that is the main claim of Russian propaganda, that the NATO and the evil West started the war. And now the United States has joined the Russian side, at least the United States government, although there are politicians from the Republican Party who openly support Ukraine and counter the false claims from Donald Trump. Donald Trump would probably throw some infantile insults at their direction, but what can you really expect from a man whose claim to victory is that within first weeks at the office he managed to defeat the Gulf of Mexico? Some people are comparing his peace talks with Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was the pact of non-aggression between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, with a secret protocol where Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union divided Europe into spheres of influence. This time the Nazis come from the United States government, and the parallel is easy to see when you take into account that Donald Trump has openly stated that he has plans to annex Canada and, basically Denmark. We must also highlight the unofficial Vice President Elon Musk, who was masterfully convinced to buy Twitter. Twitter is now full of Russian propaganda, even if it's simple street scenes of the same carefully selected Russian cities to convince people that Russia brings peace and love. And then there are these massive projections that Ukrainian generals are buying fancy cars and luxury real estate, which is of course what Russians are doing. But it seems that the further away a person is from Ukraine and Russia, the easier it is to convince that person that the war is just a local conflict that doesn't really affect them. And maybe there are people who genuinely believe that Donald Trump must be one of the only people in the world who knows both Putin and Zelensky and can thus make peace happen, because apparently no one has really tried before. And actually, if Trump currently says that if he were the president, the war would never happen, then according to his recent rhetorics, he probably means that he would just have told Ukraine to surrender. Of course, this movement towards pro-Russian sentiments isn't only a problem in the United States. In fact, there are far-right movements and parties on the rise in Canada and European countries. It's just that somehow it hurts more coming from the United States, because the United States has always hailed themselves as being the beacon of democracy. Also, it is kind of ironic that the nation that is known for their attitude of freedom isn't free is suddenly okay with the loss of freedom if the loss of freedom is happening to someone else. And lastly, Donald Trump is calling Zelensky a dictator because Zelensky isn't holding elections during wartime, something that is completely within Ukrainian constitution. And it's only Russian propaganda that claims that Zelensky isn't a legitimate president. But for some reason, the fact that Putin has been the leader of Russia for 26 years doesn't really matter to Trump. My voice is giving out now. Bye. Slava Demokrati. Motherfucker.